440 is not a tuning. It's a standard wavelength calibration used for tuning the strings of a guitar or a bass. It's used to tune the open strings to any one of the 12 notes that musically exist. E-tuning is the standard tuning most commonly used in 440 wavelength calibration. Although this lesson is demonstrated on guitar, the same logic also applies to the bass. The 4 strings on a standard bass are tuned to the same pitch as the 4 lower pitched strings on the guitar. The only difference is that the bass is tuned 1 octave lower in pitch. You will understand what an octave is later in this video. If you are using a 5-string bass, the additional lower pitched string will be tuned to B. There are 12 notes in music that repeat themselves. 7 of these notes are perfect or natural notes, meaning that they aren't sharps or flats. The musical alphabet is A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Natural notes are similar to counting numbers, or natural numbers. We naturally start counting from 1 and continue on to 2, 3, 4, and etc. It's very unnatural to start your count from 0 or to go backwards into negative numbers. The musical alphabet is very similar. It's very unnatural to say C sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and etc. Yet these notes exist. The 6 strings on a guitar are tuned to 5 of the 7 natural notes. Starting with the lowest in pitch, we have E. Next string up, A. Next string up, D. Next string up, G. Next string up, B. Next string up, E. Now notice we have 2 E strings. We have low E and high E. The names of those strings is in reference to their pitch, not their physical location on the neck. If you're a beginner, playing the guitar probably feels clumsy to you. It's easier to come up with a mnemonic to help you remember the names of the strings. So using the names of the strings, we'll say every, average, dude, or dudette if you prefer, gets better eventually. So you have every, average, dude, gets better eventually. If you're playing a bass which only has 4 strings, you can be like an Australian. Good day. Starting from G, G, E, A, E. Good day. One quick and easy way to check your guitar to see if it's in tune or not, without having to use a tuner, is to place a finger on the low E string at the 5th fret. This is an A note. This A note is the same A note as the open A string below it. Musically they're the same thing, and in sheet music they're notated the same way. If I pick these 2 notes one at a time and let them ring together, they should sound the same. The only difference between the open A string and the note that's being fretted on the E string is that the fretted note is on a heavier gauge string. In music, a note is made up of several wavelength frequencies that ring together to create the note. Because the note's being fretted on a heavier gauge string, the lower frequencies are going to dominate a little more, making it sound a little bassier, but it's the same thing. If I move up a string in pitch, I'll repeat the process, D and D. I'll move up another string in pitch and repeat the process, G and G. I'm going to move up another string and we're going to have a problem. Okay, we're going to have C, but the open string is tuned to B. Listen to how bad this is going to sound. The guitar is tuned the way it is for convenience, which I'll explain later. To compensate for this, we're just going to shift to the 4th fret on the G string. Now we'll try it. See how much better that sounds? Now we'll go back up to the 5th fret on the B string, and we're going to repeat the process, E and E. So I'll recap what we did. AA, DD, GG, BB, E and E. I've intentionally dropped the tuning at a low E string to put it out of tune. Now I'll tune it up by ear to give you a better idea what to listen for. If we repeat the process that we did earlier by placing a finger on the low E string at the 5th fret, picking that A note, letting it ring, and then picking the open A string so they ring together, you're going to hear the wavelengths crash together and it's going to sound really awful. Now I'm going to repeat that process, but as the two notes are ringing together, I'm going to reach up with my picking hand and I'm going to adjust the machine head until it's in tune. As it's slowly being tuned up, you're going to hear the wavelengths crash less and less and less. The frequencies will actually slow down until they sound the same. Now, the strings are wrapped around the machine head, so anytime you tune up and down in pitch, there's a possibility you can create some slack around the machine head on the strings. So what you do is you take your fingers and you take the string and you pull on it. I'm not pulling it so hard that I break it, but I'm not babying it either. What this does is it pulls any potential slack that you created around the machine head so it stays in tune. You may have to repeat this process several times and fine-tune it until it stays in, especially if you put on some new strings. It's called stretching the strings, but you're not really stretching the string. Now I'm going to check and see if it's still in tune. Sounds good to me. It takes a while to develop your ear. For now, you're probably better off using a tuner, but it's very important that you learn to tune by ear. If you're doing a routine tuning check by ear and some of the strings sound a little off, yet the tuner registers that they're all tuned perfectly on, there may be a problem. You may be squeezing some of the strings too tightly, which puts them slightly out of tune, or your intonation may be off. What intonation is the length of your string. In theory, the open string should sound exactly the same at the 12th fret, just an octave higher in pitch. If this is a perfect E, this should also be a perfect E. Remember, all music follows a pattern, including the notes on the fretboard. The octave is the point at which the notes begin to repeat themselves. On the low E string, the natural notes are E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. On the A string, the natural notes are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. I could repeat this process on all the strings, but you get the idea. What a luthier will do, in the case of this guitar here, it's got a fixed bridge with individual saddle pieces for all the strings to rest on. What the luthier will do is adjust these saddle pieces forward or back to adjust the length of the string so it's perfectly in tune open and perfectly in tune again at the 12th fret. Another possibility, if your guitar is intonated and you're not squeezing the strings too tightly, is that the action on your neck might be too high. What the action is the height of the string off the fretboard. If it's too high, when you go to depress it to fret the note, that can also squeeze it slightly out of tune. If we tune the B string up a half a step to the pitch of C, and the high E string up to the pitch of F, it seems like it would make the guitar easier to play. When we were doing a routine tuning check by ear, we'd be able to follow the same pattern on all 6 strings without having to adjust once we got to the G string by shifting down a half a step to the 4th fret, which is a B note, to check the open B string, like this. We also wouldn't have to adjust the pattern of a scale. Once we started to employ the higher pitched strings, we could just do it the same way and it would work anywhere on the neck. However, it wouldn't make the guitar easier to play. The reason it's tuned the way it is for convenience. It's for the convenience of playing simple chords using open strings. For instance, the E major. Notice we have 3 open strings ringing. The A major. 3 open strings ringing. C major. Once again, there's 3 open strings ringing. The G major. There's more than one way to play the G major chord, but in this particular chord there's 2 open strings ringing. Now G major is kind of special because the open G, B, and D strings, they make a chord by themselves. The guitar is also tuned the way it is for the convenience of barring. What barring is laying a finger across several strings to make them sound. I'm going to lay my first finger across the 2nd fret. I'm going to fret the other notes. This is an F sharp major. 3 notes of this chord are being produced by my first finger that's barring them. The 2 high pitched strings and the low one. Now you have seen that the 2 highest pitched strings of a guitar are tuned down a half a step in pitch instead of following their proper musical pattern to C and F. This is for the convenience of playing simple chords which utilize open strings, or to facilitate the use of bar chords on those high strings. Imagine how impossible these chords would be to play if every note on the B and high E strings had to be fingered a half step up in pitch from where they are currently played.